On a sunny Saturday morning, Karen, an enthusiastic event planner, decided to host a massive camping trip on her sprawling land. She invited 500 people, envisioning a weekend filled with laughter, campfires, and bonding under the stars. Little did she know, her excitement would lead to an unexpected twist. The invitation. As word spread about the event, Karen's friends and family eagerly RSVP'd, ready to embrace the great outdoors. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement, and Karen imagined a picturesque scene: tents pitched, marshmallows roasting, and stories shared around the fire. The twist, however: Karen's land wasn't just a serene camping spot. It was also home to a few energetic bulls. As the day of the event approached, she realized she hadn't thought through the implications of inviting so many people. The bulls were known for their playful mischief, and Karen had always kept them away from large gatherings. The decision. On the day of the camping trip, as campers began to arrive, Karen made a bold decision. She released the bulls into the open fields, hoping their presence would add to the rustic charm of the event. "What's a camping trip without a little adventure?" she thought, chuckling to herself. The chaos begins. As the campers set up their tents, the bulls trotted into view, their curiosity piqued by the sudden influx of people. At first, the campers were delighted, snapping photos and laughing at the sight. However, the bulls quickly became more interested in the food being unpacked. Suddenly, chaos erupted. The bulls, with their playful antics, began to dart through the camp, knocking over coolers, munching on snacks, and causing a ruckus. Laughter turned to screams as people scrambled to secure their belongings, creating a whirlwind of excitement and a hint of panic. The resolution. Realizing that things were getting out of hand, Karen quickly rallied her friends to help corral the bulls. They formed a human chain, trying to guide the bulls away from the food and into a safer area. After a hilarious and chaotic chase, they managed to steer the bulls back to their designated field. The aftermath. Once the bulls were secured, the campers regrouped, breathless and laughing. What started as a potential disaster turned into a memorable adventure. They shared stories of the bull chase, bonding over the unexpected thrill and the chaos that had ensued. The campfire reflection. As night fell, the campers gathered around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and recounting the day's events. Karen realized that the day had been far from perfect, but the laughter and camaraderie forged through the chaos made it unforgettable. Conclusion. In the end, the camping trip became a cherished memory, reminding everyone that sometimes the best stories come from the unexpected moments in life. Karen promised herself to plan better next time, but she also knew that the spirit of adventure was what truly made the day special. And as for the bulls, they remained a beloved part of the land, always ready to add a bit of excitement to future gatherings. The bullish camp setting the scene. On a sunny Saturday morning, the air was filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming wildflowers. Karen, an enthusiastic event planner with a flair for the dramatic, had decided to host a massive camping trip on her sprawling countryside land. With a vision of laughter, campfires, and bonding under the stars, she invited 500 people to join her for a weekend escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. The invitation. As word spread about the event, excitement mounted. Friends, family, and acquaintances eagerly RSVP'd, each envisioning a picturesque weekend filled with outdoor activities. Karen imagined tents pitched in neat rows, children running freely, and adults enjoying the tranquility of nature. She rented extra portable toilets, stocked up on firewood, and even arranged for food trucks to cater the event, ensuring that no one would go hungry. The twist. However, amidst all the planning, Karen had overlooked one crucial detail. Her land was also home to a few energetic bulls. These bulls were not just any ordinary livestock. They were known for their playful mischief and curious nature. Karen had always kept them away from large gatherings, fearing their unpredictable behavior. But as the day of the event approached, she found herself pondering whether to keep them penned or let them roam free among the campers. The decision. On the day of the camping trip, excitement filled the air as the first campers began to arrive. Karen, feeling adventurous, made a bold decision. She released the bulls into the open fields, believing their presence would add a rustic charm to the camping experience. What's a camping trip without a little adventure? She thought, chuckling to herself as she watched the bulls trot into the distance. The chaos begins. As campers set up their tents, laughter and chatter filled the air. The bulls, initially curious, soon became intrigued by the sights and sounds of the gathering crowd. At first, the campers were delighted, snapping photos and laughing at the sight of the majestic creatures grazing nearby. But as the afternoon wore on, the bulls' curiosity turned into mischief. Suddenly, chaos erupted. One bull, a particularly curious one named Duke, spotted a cooler filled with snacks. Before anyone could react, he charged toward it, knocking it over and sending chips, sandwiches, and drinks flying in all directions. The campers, realizing what was happening, erupted into a mix of laughter and screams, scrambling to salvage their food. The bull chase. The situation escalated quickly. With Duke leading the charge, the remaining bulls joined in on the fun, galloping through the camp, their hooves thundering against the ground. Tents swayed as people ran for cover, and the once peaceful camping trip transformed into a scene from a comedy movie. Campers shouted, "Watch out!" and "Get the food," as they tried to redirect the bulls away from the chaos. Karen, realizing that things were getting out of hand, quickly rallied her friends to help corral the bulls. They formed a human chain, yelling and waving their arms in an attempt to guide the bulls away from the food and into a safer area. The sight of grown adults running from bulls was both hilarious and chaotic, and soon everyone was laughing at the absurdity of the situation. The chase continues. The bulls, however, were not easily deterred. They charged through the camp not just after food, but also intrigued by the laughter and commotion. One particularly brave camper decided to join in the chase, thinking he could outsmart the bulls. He sprinted ahead, hoping to lure them away from the main gathering. But the bulls were unfazed, happily trotting after whatever caught their attention. As the chase continued, the campers began to embrace the chaos. They started cheering for their friends who were attempting to catch the bulls, turning the frantic situation into a spontaneous game. "Go, Jimmy! You can do it!" they shouted, encouraging the brave souls who dared to face the playful giants. The grand finale. Eventually, after what felt like an eternity of chaos, the campers managed to corner the bulls near a fenced area. With teamwork and determination, they successfully guided the bulls back to their designated field. Panting and laughing, the campers celebrated their small victory. The initial panic had transformed into camaraderie as they shared stories of their close encounters with the bulls. The aftermath. Once the bulls were secured, the campers regrouped, breathless but exhilarated. What had started as a potential disaster turned into a memorable adventure that would be talked about for years to come. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the campsite, they shared stories of the bull chase, bonding over the unexpected thrill and the sheer joy of the day. Karen, reflecting on the chaos, realized that her decision to let the bulls roam had not only added excitement to the event, but had also brought the campers together in a way she hadn't anticipated. The laughter and shared experiences had forged new friendships and strengthened old ones. The campfire reflection. As night fell, the campers gathered around the campfire, roasting marshmallows and recounting the day's events. The crackling fire illuminated their faces as they shared their favorite moments from the bull chase. Karen listened with a smile, grateful for the joy that had emerged from the chaos. Who knew bulls could be so entertaining? One camper joked, prompting a round of laughter. They reminisced about the moments when they thought they'd lost their snacks forever, and the hilarious attempts to wrangle the bulls. A new tradition. Inspired by the day's events, Karen decided that the bull chase would become a new tradition for future camping trips. She envisioned themed games and competitions centered around the bulls, turning what could have been a disaster into a highlight of every gathering. The campers enthusiastically agreed, already brainstorming ideas for the next adventure, plans for the future. As the night wore on, the campers began to discuss their plans for the following day. They talked about hiking trails, fishing spots, and other outdoor activities, all while keeping an eye on the bulls grazing peacefully in the distance. Karen felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that despite the initial chaos, she had created an unforgettable experience for everyone. The morning after, the next morning, the campers woke up to the sound of birds chirping and the sun shining brightly. They gathered for breakfast, sharing stories and laughter while enjoying the fresh air. Excitement filled the atmosphere as they prepared for a day filled with adventure. Karen had organized various activities, including hiking, canoeing, and even a friendly obstacle course. The campers divided into teams ready to, My name is Caleb Vance, and I run the last active cattle ranch bordering the sprawling, manicured lawns of the Oakwood Highlands subdivision. The HOA's border fence might be decorative, but my property line, marked by sturdy barbed wire and no trespassing signs, is sacred. The trouble, as always, was Patrice, the HOA Activities Director, a woman who treated our quiet corner of the state like her personal summer camp brochure. She's the kind of Karen who loves the idea of nature but hates the reality of dirt, bugs, or, private property. The grand event I first learned of the disaster via a poorly designed flyer stapled to a community bulletin board. Oakwood Highlands, Annual Freedom to Roam Festival. Come celebrate nature. We've secured exclusive access to the beautiful community Greenbelt for a weekend of camping, bonfires, and live music. Expecting 500+ guests. The map on the flyer was horrifying. The community Greenbelt was a poorly shaded in, 10-acre section of my summer grazing pasture. I immediately called Patrice. Patrice, you've advertised a 500-person campout on my private ranch land. That's trespassing, illegal, and my prize Hereford bulls are grazing there. She scoffed, the sound crackling over the phone. Oh, calm down, Caleb, it's just open space. Our bylaws state we have a right to utilize community areas for recreational purposes. Your ranch is an eyesore. We're just improving its use. The campers will be gone by Sunday. And really, bulls? They're just big cows, they're harmless. Patrice, my bulls are 4 years old, weigh over a ton, and their names are Thunder and Lightning, I warned her. They are not harmless. If you bring 500 strangers onto my land, I will call the sheriff. Go ahead and call Caleb, she chirped. The festival starts at 5 p.m. See you there. Chaos erupts, sure enough. By 6 p.m. on Saturday, my pasture looked like a refugee camp. 500 people, many in pristine white clothes, setting up enormous tents, playing loud music, and starting dozens of unauthorized campfires, had completely trampled my grazing land. The boundary fence had been cut in 3 places, and kids were using my tractor tires as a jungle gym. I called the sheriff's department, but they were tied up across the county and said they couldn't get a unit out for hours. I had tried the diplomatic route. I had tried the legal route. Now it was time for the rancher route. I drove my pickup truck down to the far corner of the ranch where my herd was penned. My 2 big Hereford breeding bulls, Thunder and Lightning, along with the rest of the herd, were agitated by the noise. All right, boys, I muttered, grabbing the fence cutters. Time to introduce you to the community. I quietly snipped the wire on the holding pen and opened the gate wide. The herd, led by the 2 massive bulls, hesitated for a moment, then caught the scent of fresh grass and, more importantly, the sound of strange people on their territory. The stampede of justice. What happened next was not a malicious attack, but a rapid, non-violent eviction dictated by bovine territorial instincts. The bulls didn't charge people. They simply charged their tents. Thunder, a magnificent beast with a deep growl, lowered his massive head and used his horns to effortlessly flip a 4-person tent over a hedge, scattering sleeping bags and organic snacks everywhere. Lightning decided that the massive boombox playing EDM was a nuisance and promptly stomped on it. The sight of 2,000 pounds of snorting, very annoyed, bull is a powerful motivator. The festival instantly devolved into utter panic. 500 campers who thought cows were harmless were suddenly face to face with an angry, bewildered herd. People were pouring out of their tents, tripping over guy lines, abandoning expensive coolers, and scrambling for the perimeter. Patrice, who was trying to give a speech about community solidarity by a giant bonfire, saw thunder heading her way and executed a breathtaking dive into a hedge. The exit was immediate. The 500 campers fled the scene, streaming back toward the HOA subdivision, leaving behind a battlefield of abandoned gear, overturned grills, and shattered pretenses, the cleanup bilby. The time the sheriff finally arrived, my pasture was empty of people, but filled with hundreds of discarded tents, chairs, and coolers. The bulls were peacefully grazing near a pile of discarded yoga mats. The sheriff, a good old boy named Billy, just shook his head and smirked. "Looks like you had a little trespassing problem, Caleb. Glad your security system worked so well." The next week, I sent the HOA a bill that made them faint. It covered trespass and property damage, repair of 3 sections of perimeter fence, grazing loss, compensation for the 10 acres of pasture that were utterly ruined and required reseeding, cleanup fee, my hourly rate, plus equipment costs for clearing over 4 tons of abandoned festival garbage and human waste from my land. Patrice tried to fight it, but the sheriff's report noted the hundreds of people illegally camping, and my lawyer simply cited the Right to Farm Act again. The HOA was forced to pay every single cent. My pasture was reseeded. My fence was repaired. And the Oakwood Highlands HOA has never again mistaken my ranch for a community greenbelt.